how I made this scene in Blender, I try to replicate this and this, starting by shaping this brick and assigning this outside base to a new group by pressing Ctrl G, then assign to new group. And that will come to play later. Make the 3D cursor as the pivot point, then duplicate the bricks around it. Make sure that you leave quite large gaps, like this. Make some adjustments to break the perfection. Once you're done with the first row, duplicate one of the bricks, rotate it around the 3D cursor, then reshape it a little bit. Make sure you always leave some gaps, like this. Rotate it to its place, then duplicate it a bunch of times. Since the second row is smaller than the first row, make sure you make some adjustments to make it fit. Now for the final row, I will duplicate one of the bricks and rotate it, then make it a little bit taller. And this size is perfect. Make it less wide in the top part, like this. Then duplicate it a bunch of times. Shift D, rotate around the 3D cursor, Shift D. And we end up with something like this. And now for the final part here, select all of this final row, Shift S, cursor to selected, Shift A, and add a cylinder with maybe six vertices. Something like that. Now duplicate the first row and make it below the ground. And of course rotate it a little bit to fit, like this. Now select everything, then raise up a little bit this structure above the ground. Now select these three and shape a door. Something like this will do it. Now I duplicate one of the bricks to make the entry. And we end up with something like this. I make the first row a little bit taller to bury it under the ground. Now select everything, shift select one of the bricks, then Ctrl J to join them. Go to Object, Set Origin, Origin to Geometry. Now tap to enter the edit mode, Alt A to deselect everything, go to Vertex Group and press Select. Except for that, let's make Ctrl G, not assign to new group, assign to active group, the group that's selected, then press Select. Shift D now, P to separate, Selection, tab, select it, then go to Modifiers, add a Solidify modifier, and make sure the Solidify is covering this entry bricks. Make sure the Solidifier go both ways by making this 0, then raise it a little bit up, like this. Not 0, but something like 0.4, 0.5. Then add a subdivision surface. Press now tab to go to the edit mode, select everything, go to individual origins, S, and scale everything to overlap. Maybe this top one not like this, S. Something like that will do it. Now go to the modifiers and add a remesh modifier. It is a little bit like this. We don't want that. So we go to modifiers and add a smooth modifier. Make it maybe 50 or 100 iteration. I end up with these numbers in solidified and these numbers in smooth modifier. And I make a little bit of adjustment in the entry bricks to make them buried underneath this layer. And that now should do it with the snow house. I don't know what they call this thing. For the terrain, it's just a large plane and a little bit of sculpting using the Dino Topo option here. Now I will adjust the camera to not wasting my time. Now smooth shade in the plane, right click smooth shade, and also the snow house. We'll do the smooth shading for the snow house in the remesh modifier, smooth shade. Then we'll go to materials now. Shading. For the shading, go to render and convert to cycles, because we'll do the materials in cycles and the render also. Split these windows, go to the camera view, 0, then press Z, go to render. If you don't have a GPU like me and render with CPU, go to performance and go to auto-detect and fix. Then I have 12 threads, so I will make 10 for the render and 2 for the navigation. And that will make the navigation very easy and fast. If I go to Z, render, You see, it's very fast in navigation. If I make it auto detect, you see, we'll make the plane and snow house sharing the same materials. So select the plane, shift the snow house, Control L, then materials. We'll start by the bricks inside this snow house. So select the bricks like this. And before that, we will add a bevel modifier and make the segments for, and in shading harden normals and auto smooth. And it's perfect now. Starting with these bricks, it's very simple. Make the roughness 136 and the transmission roughness all the way up. Now add Shift A, shader, volume absorption, make it maybe 20 or something, and reduce the value a little bit to make it a little bit darker and absorb some of the lights. I have a pre-installed HDR in the Word, so I will go and change it to one that fit this scene. Press 0. Control T, make sure the node wrangler add-on is enabled for this Control T thing to work, and rotate it along the Z like this. Now I will make the string maybe 0.1. Then I will back to objects and we're done with this. Select the other, and because this is a duplicated element from the bricks, so it shares same material. So I will click in this number 47 because I have 47 bricks. Then I join in them in the end. Then select the principal, then press the backspace button to reset the principal. Now make the subsurface 0.15. Roughness will drive it with Voronoi texture, leave it, and the transmission to 0.165. Transmission roughness all the way up. Roughness now, Shift A, texture, Voronoi texture, Control Shift left click, then Control T, make it from the object, Control Shift left click another time to make it from the color, make the scale 40, Shift A, converter, color ramp, and make it go to the roughness here. Control Shift click, and this reddish tint here is from the radius. Make the radius 445 to make it have a bluish tint, and make this share the same materials with the terrain. Shift Control L, materials. And before we adjust the lights, we have to make the scene size realistic, because this scene size is way larger than it should. It should be 1.7 or 0.8, but it's 13 meters. So Shift C, then Shift A, add an empty, maybe a cube, S, and attach everything to this cube, even the camera and the light, everything. Control P, keep transform. And you see the light is a supernova now. Make it 100 watt maybe. Go to use node, Shift A, converter, black body, and make it maybe to 500 to make the inside warm. Now we'll make some of the bricks larger to break this brick pattern. Tap to enter the edit mode and select some of the bricks. Maybe that should do it. Then go to the transform here and convert it to individual origins. Then S. Go to 3D cursor now, Shift C and S. For final adjustments, I add some bump using noise texture and the displacement node and the displacement node. And also I add a noise texture to break the subsurface scattering and the transmission also. I add also a cube to make it volumetric. For the volumetric cube, I separate the component, the X and Y and Z, and I get the X, rotate it a little bit to fit the scene. The camera is here and the white is here. Then it goes to a color ramp between 0.02 and 0.2, and it goes to the density and to the emission strength with a little bit of reducing by this multiply. The emission color, I make it a little bit blue, and that's it. For the snow, I use a particle system. These are the numbers, except for this, I end up use 3 million particles. You can use maybe less than that, but I find 3 million is very good to fill the scene with snow. For physics, I make the Brownie 50, and for render, I make a Nicosphere as an object to render. These are the numbers. For the axial particle in the shading, I use just a translucent with 1.5 in value. And also I use a force field, wind, with these numbers, 30 in power, and that's it. Let's make a render and I will come back. In the render settings, just enable motion blur, and in camera settings, just enable a depth of field. Make an empty, Shift A, empty plane axis, back to the camera, and make this empty as focal, not this other empty. Now I will make the particle and I will make it render and come back. And this is the result. The result is satisfied actually. I love it. Now I hope you like the tutorials and thanks for watching.